Here's Tony Rielli.
The most amazing thing of all the amazing things about these Astros winning the World Series, 6 of their 9 starters are homegrown. That's why coming from the worst record in baseball, coming from a different league, having to rebuild around all that, and doing it all in such short term is so sport-changing. As Sports Illustrated called it 3 years ago, baseball's great experiment. So as we get into it all today, we start by breaking down Game 7. We were spoiled with those 2 extra inning games in the series and the all-time great championship games in every sport of the last 2 years. This was not that. And I want you to tell me why, Bill Plaschke. You covered this series, of course, for the LA Times. How did it all go so right for Houston and go so wrong for the Dodgers?
What a clunker, Tony. What after a great postseason. It was over before it started. Hugh Darvish. Starts with Hugh Darvish, gives up 5 runs in less than 2 innings, a 21.60 ERA in the World Series, maybe the worst World Series starting pitcher ever in World Series history. He does that, so they get behind 5-0. The offense has to swing from their heels. They're 0 for 7 with runners in scoring position in the first 3 innings. It was a nightmare. Plus, everybody talks about later that was Darvish tipping his pitches. Yes, he was tipping his pitches. There's no way Alex Bregman steals third base in the first inning. He knew a curveball was coming. He would not have done that if he didn't know it was coming. So everything went wrong for the Dodgers. The game was over before it started.
Okay, but you're getting a mute right here. You called it a clunker. Not so clunky for people in Houston. So let me ask you this. Should Dave Roberts be questioning his decision to start Darvish? If you're going to go to Kershaw in the third, why not just start him?
No, Tony, this is the reason they got Darvish, so Kershaw wouldn't have to work on 2 days rest, having thrown 94 pitches 2 days earlier. Darvish was the first two games of the postseason, he was almost unhittable. So he struggled in the World Series, but again, they have to go with him. That's why they brought him here.
You said yourself, he was unhittable going into the World Series. Then we got to the World Series, and the ball was a lot slicker. For a slider pitcher, it was nearly impossible. We saw it with Ken Giles out of Houston's bullpen. And it was impossible for you, Darvish, in his first start. Even after the first inning, do you have to pull Darvish at that point, Bill?
No, at that point, no, again, because the bullpen was gashed. You had to he was within 1 out of getting out of it. He got 2 outs, 2 ground balls in the third and second inning, 1 out before getting out of it. The Astros stuck with McCullers Jr., and you saw what happened with that. Dodgers took a chance on it.
Let's bring in everybody else now. Tim Kalishaw, was this about what the Astros did or what the Dodgers didn't do?
I think it was a lot about what the Astros did. I would dispute a lot of what Mr. Plaschke just said to start with, including blaming the whole series on an ex-Ranger. Let's talk about those Astros. And let's go back to Game 2, kind of forgotten now with all the mayhem of Game 5 and everything else. This was the Dodgers series. Kershaw owned them in Game 1, and it's 3-2 in the 9th in Game 2, and they got the best closer on the mound. And Marwin Gonzalez hits that home run from out of nowhere to tie it. And that's where Houston all of a sudden gained some confidence. We can actually hit these great pitchers. They didn't know they could hit Kershaw till Game 5, but they started getting to the Dodgers bullpen, and they never really stopped hitting after that moment. So, I mean, the Astros did a lot of things to deserve to win. And I would dispute Bill saying last night was a clunker, because even with a 5-run lead, if you were an Astros fan, you were sweating it the whole way because you know they have no bullpen and you have no idea exactly how this is going to play out. He basically used 3 starting pitchers and never, for the most part, for most of the innings, and never got anywhere near Giles or anyone like that. So I thought it was still, a great series for the Astros, obviously, and the Dodger hitters just didn't show up.
KB, how did the Astros pull this off last night in Los Angeles?
Well, if luck is the residue of design, they had a brilliant design, and the Los Angeles Dodgers did not. I mean, you think about it. Bill mentioned McCullers Jr. It looked like he was about to be chased out of that game, and what does he do? He gets the outs and gets the guys off the base pass, and they go in with that solid lead. You look at all the runners that were left on base last night by the Dodgers. Not for the Astros. They got guys on, and they got them home somehow, some way. Everything that Hinch did worked out in his favor. Everything that Roberts did, with the exception of putting Kershaw in, worked to his disadvantage. So you got to tip your hat to the Astros. How about this? They beat the 3 biggest payrolls in baseball in order to win these World Series rings. And they did it in the Dodgers' house, where no one expected that to happen because they were just so good at home and not so good on the road.
Frank Isola.
Boy, Bill, I really hope you didn't write for your column. The game was over before it started. The game ended in the second inning when Springer hit the home run, and Yu Darvish should not have been on the mound pitching to him. This guy started 2 games, 3 1/3 innings, threw 96 pitches, 9 runs, and he had 4 of his pitches, the Astros swung and missed out of 96. What was he doing in the game in the second inning? I get it. I'm not starting Kershaw in this game, but you got to bring him in the second inning. Darvish did not have it. They lost it in the second inning, not the first inning.
Plaschke, any idea here?
So
that
easy
could
for
have
you
been
to say, guess he didn't have it. Again, you just got 2 ground ball outs when Springer came up. He was doing fine. He was struggling, but there was no reason to take him out at that point, to go to Kershaw at that point. There was absolutely no reason. That's why he was brought here.
It's still traveling, Bill. It's still flying.
Of course. Oh, yeah. You're saying, of course. Oh, with hindsight, absolutely. You're exactly right with second guessing.
Hindsight, his first start he was terrible, and the first inning he was terrible.
Your second guess is exactly correct there.
We're saying the bullpen for the Dodgers was spent. That may be true. I mean, we saw Morrow pitch every game of this series, but could they not have gone to Wood then to start the game or to start the second inning, Plaschke, if you were worried
Alex Wood has never pitched on short rest ever. They brought Hugh Darvish, he was on full rest.
I guess my question is, should you be rethinking what you're going to get from your starters? Could this not have been seen as a 3-inning start? You know, you're talking about Kershaw. He couldn't have started the game. He gave them the innings in the middle of the game. Could not have just started the game
innings.
For them.
He gave them the innings when it was 5-0, and that's not to diminish Clayton Kershaw's greatness, but it's a different thing when you're coming in to pitch and the other team really has the game locked down.
I don't want to diminish the Astros' greatness here, so let's go a little bit deeper on them. So young, so good, and back to that Sports Illustrated cover. Ben Ryder didn't just call it baseball's experiment, called them the next big thing. So, Tim, how big can this thing be, and is it the blueprint for the next era of baseball?
Well, I think it can be really big because, as you mentioned, all the homegrown players, all the young talent. It's a young, the infield is all homegrown. They got Verlander for 2 more years, so that was a great deal to add to it when they needed to add to it. But I do think, in fairness, we got to remember we were saying all the same things about the Cubs a year ago. This Dodger team won 104 games. They're going to win one sometime, aren't they? The Yankees think they're there. The Indians think they're there. So it's a crowded field. But this Astro team should be the kind of team that wins 95 to 100 games almost on an annual basis for the next few years because they're so deep. But it's not really a blueprint. Nobody else really is willing to take the payroll down to $22 million as they did 4 years ago and alienate all your fans in the hopes of building it back up.
Well, that's the point. Should teams be willing to do that? You just said it. They got to a rock bottom. $22 million was what their payroll was when they had the back-to-back 100-loss seasons 4 and 3 years ago, KB. Is that a blueprint for a franchise that's never won anything, maybe to turn things around?
No, it worked. It worked for the Astros, but let's be honest here. I mean, it's not a new thing for a team to put all their investment into their farm system, to grow some really good players, to bring them up, and then to augment them with a great pitcher like Verlander to get you over the hump. I mean, let's go back to the Yankees, who I so despised because of all the money that they had in terms of a payroll in the 90s. But most of those players, that heart of those players were all homegrown Yankees players, and then they bring in somebody like Roger Clemens to help them get over the top.
The word analytics hasn't even been brought up here, which is, I guess, I'm for both Kalish and Black. So their scouting department doesn't look like the scouting department did in baseball 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Frank Isola. Could there be a blueprint here? What the Astros just accomplished? What does it tell you about where baseball's going?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of teams try to build with young players. So the key is, number one, picking the right young players. So in Springer and Correa and obviously Altuve, they picked 3 great players. And then can you suffer through all the losing? Will your fans still come to the ballparks? A lot of these big markets, you can't do that. I don't think you could do it in New York. But it's still, when they got close, they still made a big move. They went out and they got Justin Verlander. Yu Darvish went to the Dodgers. Verlander went to the Astros. Who got the better deal? That, to me, is what sealed it for the Houston Astros.
And Bill Plaschke?
Yeah, it's a perfect blueprint for a middle market team. So perfect. Remember, the St. Louis Cardinals, there's a guy going to jail for trying to steal it from the Astros. So that's a huge thing. But like Frank said, it would never work in L.A. And I had an L.A. executive tell me he would love to be able to tank the way the Chicago Cubs tanked, the way the Astros tanked. Big market teams cannot tank. So again, Boston, New York, L.A., not going to work.
Cubs are a big market team, so that would.
But they have a small market fan base.
Yeah,
Kalish, anyway.
I love the guy from the second biggest market telling us that the fourth biggest market is a middle market. It's just Houston. It's just 5 million people.
Now you claim Houston.
If they're losing.
You never claim Houston.
Yeah.
Chicago fans will still come out if the team's losing. That's the difference.
But back to Frank's point, you got to pick the right players. Altuve was a 17-year-old undrafted free agent when the Astros signed him. George Springer was originally picked out of high school in the 48th round by the Minnesota Twins.
Right. Incredible rookie year, most strikeouts ever in the World Series.
Well, I think first I want to congratulate Tim, the Dallas columnist, for suddenly, adopting Houston. You're a big Houston guy. That's tremendous. That's tremendous. You never did. No, the Dodgers are going to be fine. They have the highest payroll in baseball. They're all coming back. Except for Yu Darvish, he will not be back. And Cody Bellinger is going to be fine. I was so impressed last night. A lot of Dodgers didn't show up right away in the clubhouse. He stood there and answered questions for 45 minutes, talked to everyone, acknowledged what he did. Remember, he's just a rookie. He didn't even start the season in the big leagues. He'll be just fine. He has to figure out his swing. He'll work it out in the winter. He's a very smart baseball guy.
And overall, this season is viewed as an enormous success. Or the loss at home, bittersweet?
No. In general, because they brought a World Series back to L.A. for the first time in 29 years. The whole town was buzzing for the first time in 29 years about this team. The season, I think you have to say, was not a failure because they lost the World Series. They blew the World Series.
You want to rule over that from Texas?
I don't think it's a failure by any means, for all the reasons Plaschke said. But I would think Dodger fans today are still a little heartbroken that you get that close and you can't close the deal.
Talk about a team. They have youth on their side as well. They have that enormous payroll, but I mean, $100 million of that was going to guys who weren't even playing in the game. So, yeah. We've been horned. I think we just need to watch the Carlos Correa proposal over and over again. Can we cue that up? The anticipation here must have been enormous. And the question I need to know is,
so why haven't you called? What are you waiting for? The Addiction Network is here to take your call 24 hours a day.
I lost everything. And the only way to get my life back was to pick up the phone and call and go to treatment.
Call 800-659-3632.
NFC North rivals meet under the lights in Lambeau. Monday Night Football. Lions, Packers. Monday, 8:15 Eastern on ESPN. Buy or sell.
Andrew Luck to the IR. He's out for the season. He had the shoulder surgery in January. That came later than most thought. He had pain all season last year, missed just one game. Year before that was the lacerated kidney. He missed 9 games then. Bill, what to buy, what to sell here?
I'm buying the fact that they finally did. They should have done this long ago to get him started for next year and also give Jacoby Brissett a chance to show what he can do, to maybe he can be a piece in a trade perhaps. All the while, they can tank it and get a good draft pick. This works out for everybody, gives them a chance to finally get healthy.
Kalisha?
I'm selling that we can still think of Andrew Luck in the same terms we did 3 years ago when he's in the AFC Championship game in New England, a game that became famous for something else. But his career seemed to certainly be on track to be the next great quarterback, going to multiple Super Bowls. Next year's year 7. He's moving into the midpoint of his career on a bad team with an injured shoulder. I don't know.
You question whether physically he's ever going to be 100%.
Yeah, I mean, or if he's ever going to get to where we thought he was going to get, for sure.
Kevin Blackistone, you have the same questions?
Yeah, I sell it too. I mean, if it was the other shoulder and not his throwing shoulder, then I would feel differently about it. But man, what an irony that both he and RG3 would not be able to be playing right now in this league when we debated who would be the better quarterback this far into their careers, right? Just a horrible thing to have happen.
Frank Isola?
I thought it was the most underreported story of the preseason, the fact that he wasn't ready for game 1. And now you think about it. Last time he played in a playoff game, 2014. He's played in 22 games over the last 3 seasons. This was a guy that we thought was going to be the next Tom Brady, Peyton Manning. Now his career, let's face it, could be in jeopardy.
Buy or sell too. Jimmy Garoppolo going to San Francisco, going from backing up Tom Brady to backing up C.J. Beathard. Kyle Shanahan says he's in no rush to play Garoppolo. May sit him out the rest of the season because he's got a long way to go as far as learning the verbiage of the offense, and most quarterbacks don't get comfortable in his system until the second year. Tim, buy or sell that?
Selling it. I mean, yes, he's got some things to learn. You telling me a month from now he can't go out there and run some plays for a bad 49ers team and at least start to see what he can give the team? He'll be in there by Thanksgiving.
Blackstone?
Look at their record. How much worse could it be? And what I want to know is, what is it with the Shanahans that their playbooks are so complicated that nobody can walk in and understand them and start running plays? Get out of here with that. Play the guy.
Sola?
Yeah, he's talking like they're splitting the atom out there in San Francisco, or I should say Santa Clara. And if I'm a fan, season ticket holder, I want to see Garoppolo play. He turned 26 today. Get him in there. Maybe not this week, next week, but he's got to play this season.
Flash game.
And all you same guys, the minute he goes in there and gets hit behind a terrible offensive line and something happens to him, what are they playing him for? Why are they playing him? They have to at least sit him out until Trent Brown and Joe Staley get back. Two of the offensive linemen are down. Their top offensive
so you
linemen.
think you should consider the health of their offensive line?
Absolutely.
Frank, you're shaking your head?
Yeah, I agree with Bill. Let's place him in bubble wrap until game one
That's
of
not
next
bubble.
season.
Oh,
That's the way we'll go, Bill. Come on.
Frank, that's ridiculous. You don't
spend too much time with the World Series.
At some point, you got to do your job, though, right? Your job is playing games. I mean,
get him in there.
Can't worry that everybody's
You got to think of the long term. He's not going to do anything this year anyway.
Fire Cell 3, the 13th seed in the Eastern Conference right now. The Cleveland Cavaliers. 4 straight losses by a combined 63 points. That is the worst losing streak of LeBron's career. After the game, LeBron's pessimistic, Lou's optimistic, and Tristan Thompson is out 3 weeks plus, the Cleveland calf. KB, you seeing a bored team, a flawed team, or a team that's breaking?
I just see a flawed team right now, in part because of the injuries, or in part because there's no effort. They're the worst defense in the league, and that is effort. Your offense may come and go, but the defense should be there, at least try, and they're not doing that. They're losing at home to teams to which they are favored to win by double digits. Come on.
Isola?
Hey, they had a great Halloween party. Let's give them that. Here it is. Effort has been terrible, and you traded Kyrie Irving for the next pick, which doesn't play. Isaiah Thomas doesn't play, so you traded a great point guard for Jay Crowder, and you replaced him with Dwayne Wade and Derrick Rose. This is what you get.
I mean, you're saying they traded him. Yes, they traded him. It was a trade demand by Kyrie Irving. They were kind of hamstrung there, weren't they?
They still didn't replace him, though. They didn't replace an all-star great point guard yet.
Flashkey?
If Isaiah Thomas comes back and when he comes back, they'll be fine. They're just bored right now. Frank wouldn't know anything about this. He has never been around winning basketball teams. The Lakers were bored for all these years. The Lakers of Shaq and Kobe played bored until April. Give these guys a chance. They'll be fine.
Tim Kalishaw.
I'm going to stay out of the winning basketball teams discussion, but let me say this. Their defense is always bad early in the year, but they overcome it because they're so good offensively. So not having Irving, yeah, I assume that's a big deal. They still shouldn't be getting blown out by some of these Eastern.
Yahoo Sports, the reporting from the Orlando Sentinel about the postponed game in September because of Hurricane Irma, and FSU's bull streak dating back to 1982. So the idea that the Noles want UL Monroe back on schedule so they have a better chance of getting to a 500 record. They're 2-5 right now. Fair or foul, Tim?
It's got to be foul. I mean, if you really wanted to play UL Monroe again, you would have arranged this, when you had the weather issues in September. Now you're trying to do it to keep a record going. That's lame.
Come on, Tim. It's fair. It's just a makeup game. It was already on the schedule, so get it done whenever you can. Give the Monroe kids a chance maybe to upset Florida State, which is a very real possibility.
Very real possibility the way FSU has played. And I think UL Monroe would be seeing money from this. Is that how these agreements usually do?
They get a big check.
So I think they should get that check. We'll move on. Sixers and Jahlil Okafor, no contract pickup. So he wants a buy.
No, I would ride this out. I don't think there's any real trade value from him yet. And this is a guy who was a rookie, 17.5 points, 7 rebounds. There's talent there. Now, why he can't get on the floor and why he has all these other issues, I don't know. But I think Philadelphia knows there's more of a player there than they're seeing right now. I wouldn't just give him away for 50 cents on the dollar.
I think I liked it better the first time I heard it when Kevin Blackistone was saying it. He's getting the point, and he's getting the face time.
You know what? I am all for reducing our carbon footprint, and I love the idea of biking everywhere you gotta go. But you know what really grinds my bike gears right now? It's all these dockless companies that have invaded our cities with all these blue bikes and silver bikes and orange bikes and green bikes. And you know what people do with them? They just litter them all over the city. They're in the middle of the sidewalk. They're up in trees. They're on the side of park roads. This is ridiculous. You gotta find a place to park these dockless bikes. Suppose we did that with our cars and we just parked them on the sidewalk or put them in front of your house or right in front of your door and then you couldn't get in. Are you kidding me? Somebody legislate something and get a place to put dockless bikes. They can't be in the middle of the street.
You say
anywhere you want to put them
on trees? Is that what I heard?
Right outside the door.
23 and a half hour break. We'll see you tomorrow.
Happy Hour
is presented by Sky Vodka. Please drink responsibly.
Pardon the interruption, but I'm Mike Wilbon. The Astros